Welcome to Exit Algorithms, the podcast where we decode what it really takes to scale, exit, and preserve the legacy of your business. I'm your host, Pete Vera, and today we're joined by the founders of InfraScale.ai, a company transforming how businesses operate and ensuring they never miss leads using AI-driven voice and messaging systems. Zechariah Zanders, a performance marketing strategist and co-founder of InfraScale.ai, brings over 7 years of managing $16.5 million in paid media for Fortune 500 brands across platforms like Meta and TikTok. Joining him is his business partner, Rob Petrie, whose expertise in private equity and technical AI deployment complements Zechariah's front-end marketing skills. Together, they're leveraging AI to help small businesses scale smarter. Zechariah, Rob, great to have you on the show, guys.
Great to
Great to be on.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into this. I'd love to hear, if you guys don't mind, sharing a little bit, start off, tell guests about your background, how you got started in business, and then, eventually what led you guys to founding InfraScale.ai.
Yeah, I can get us kicked off. So I'm Zechariah for everyone listening. So I would say my journey with entrepreneurship started from birth. My dad basically has always been an entrepreneur. Mostly when I was a kid, he had like carpet cleaning business, and we grew up in Ohio, so he eventually had regional contracts with major retailers in that area. And then he eventually transitioned to cleaning, like having regional contracts with a lot of the Verizon wireless stores mostly between Southern Ohio and Kentucky, Northern Kentucky, and did well for himself there. And then eventually water restoration, mold remediation, insurance jobs, bigger payouts and things like that. So I think I kind of have been inoculated with an example of entrepreneurship since I was a kid. So I was in college, fast forward through life, I was in college and I saw an ad about running ads. And this was in the era of like all these kids who were like, I ran Facebook ads and bought a Lamborghini, and really they're making money from their courses. It was during that time back in 2019. And these guys in particular, James McKim, Jason Bonadies, they have a program still called Local Marketing Vault. They've done over 9 figures. I could tell they were legit just by the way that they presented themselves in their ads and what they talked about. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't about Lamborghinis. It was about business principles, which I had an understanding of from just seeing it all my life. So it's like, I know these guys know what they're talking about. Got into their program, and 8 months later went full-time doing this. I dropped out of college and pursued it. I was at Arizona State University pursuing supply chain and logistics. And I said, this is it. I know that this is the lane for me. And that was, 6.5 years ago. And so anyhow, I've been full-time ever since. I went from not knowing how to get a client and walking into the same businesses over and over and over again, trying to get a client, all the way to eventually consulting the paid media teams behind companies like Ghirardelli, Lint, Faro Bank, and so forth, and working with them and helping them actually beat KPIs and bringing some new ideas that I brought from the freelance world of advertising that just they weren't used to in the corporate world of advertising. Things that I thought were normal and obvious, they thought were revolutionary, and which allowed us to bring about higher performance for them. So that's kind of my general background with advertising and marketing, and how I'm even in this position, to be able to be here today.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great. You made a career for yourself. That's impressive, and especially in such a crowded space as well.
Yeah, I'm not without, growing pains and times of wanting to quit, but just stuck to it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, Rob, if you don't mind sharing your background as well, and love to hear how you guys joined forces.
Sure. Yeah. So similar to Zechariah, I grew up surrounded by entrepreneurship. My father was a banker in the late 90s, 80s, and my mother was in the mortgage business for most of my childhood. Around '08, they sold the mortgage company, and my mother transitioned to insurance and banking, always as a lead or a director or the owner of the shop. And like when I was just getting ready to go to college, she decided to make an investment in a gym. Well, a franchise gym. It was supposed to be an investment. And about 6 months after we opened our doors, COVID came around. So our capital got hit pretty hard. Um, we couldn't keep people on payroll. People couldn't walk in the physical gyms. I was in New Jersey at the time where the gym was located. So they had pretty strict protocol there. And we found ways to bring in cash, but the real concern is what were we going to do when we opened our doors? So when we did open our doors, we decided to work with a marketing company that was out of Australia where the franchise was founded. So they had a lot of experience working with similar franchise gyms. They got us some good results in the first 2 months, but more importantly, I was the person who was on calls with them, helping set up the technology, and it opened my eyes to a lot of the software that they were using, how they were using it, how they were running the ads. So I decided to do my own research, came across Go High Level, which has been a foundation of everything I've done since. And I thought to myself as I'm watching these YouTube videos, even if a handful of these stories are true, I know that we've paid marketing companies $2,000-3,000 a month to run our ads. So it must be true to a degree that a simple amount of work and some sales experience can lead to some big deals. So
Sure.
um, I helped as best as I could with the gym while I was at university. I was actually there studying biochemistry. I went to my first trimester of medical school after graduating, and I just knew that I didn't really want to be a doctor. I was really pursuing it for um, the financial stability, essentially. And I spoke to a lot of people, even doctors I worked with. They said, if you want to do anything else in this world, go do it. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Initially, I thought the best track was just to get into sales. So I did. And on the side, I was trying hard to get clients for a small marketing business. And I decided to pursue gyms since that was the only experience I had. And I got a few contracts, but nothing special, nothing that changed my life, nothing that I could take on. So um, I tried to maintain it and I continued doing sales. Eventually, my corporate life led me to more private equity banking and insurance corporate positions on the accounting and finance teams of companies. And I started to get more involved in consulting for a few friends that I have made along the way. And it led me to a company that was based in Canada um, that needed help putting together systems through Go High Level, as well as just some hiring jobs. So this conversation led me to find Zechariah. And while I was working for this company and seeing how they put things together, I said, I really need to stop helping other people and just do this for myself now that I have a little bit more money to bankroll the company. So Zachariah and I kept in touch for months after I had initially met him. And one day I called him and I said, well, I'm gonna launch an offer. I got the idea all pretty much laid out. And I want you to come on for marketing and be my partner. And Zechariah was pretty quick to say yes. And from there, we launched our first offer that worked with insurance agents that I knew pretty well from my mother's experience and my short time in life insurance sales. And our offer went well, but not well enough. We continued to evolve the company to where we are today. After this will be our third offer that I believe definitely has the most ground. And that's with our AI voice and messaging systems, which you described in the beginning, Pete. Working mostly with home service companies, but service businesses in general.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's an amazing story. It's cool to hear, your entrepreneurial itch. You had to do something on your own and kind of iterated a little bit before having a product like as sophisticated as InfraScale AI. I'd love to hear about the your guys' kind of marketing philosophy. Talk about I read about the pre-funnel fix. I don't know if either maybe Zechariah or Zechariah, you're more equipped to answer that question, but if you could walk us through kind of the system and process, I think it would be valuable.
Yeah, definitely. So the prefrontal fix, it's a framework I have for looking before taking on anyone's marketing, looking at their systems, looking at their processes to understand essentially where the leaks are in their funnel. For anyone listening to this in a marketing sense, a funnel is basically whatever your system or process is, from getting people to come into your ecosystem and know about you, whether that's just like, an actual sales funnel, a website, or just your social media page, and then you funnel them down to funnel them down through an intentional path to get them to eventually take some sort of meaningful action, whether that's making a purchase or joining a webinar or just signing up for a newsletter or whatever it is. And so anyhow, I'll go and take a look and say, okay, what are you doing? How much are you spending? Where are you directing traffic? What is your copywriting? Which, if you don't know what that means, that's just the words on your ads, words on your landing pages, etc. How is that looking? What is the value? Is there any kind of value ladder to keep the traffic that you're bringing in stuck to your business, and to keep them ascending or just becoming a repeat customer over and over again, all these kind of things, and finding the leaks in the bucket essentially. And then first patching those leaks, because the first part is how can we, and I know I'm speaking conceptually, I can give more concrete examples if you prefer, but it's how can we first increase efficiency by just simply patching simple mistakes up, that's leaking money, leaking opportunities, and so forth. That's like should always be the first move, because that's okay. We can do this day 1, day 2, day 3. We don't have to go build out some massive system. It's going to take 3 weeks. It's a quick turnaround, automatic quick wins. The company starts automatically making more money just by cutting out inefficiencies or patching holes, so to speak. And then from there, it's okay, what systems do we need to implement next to either increase customer lifetime value or even get something rolling with that? Or maybe it's getting better marketing or in messaging. It's, hey, your ads are working, but if you just spoke more to the pain points and problems, for example, you'd probably get more people paying attention, which would probably inevitably lead to more people coming through, more traffic coming through, and eventually people taking more of those meaningful actions. So it's a lot of looking at systems, looking at processes, looking at holes and inefficiencies, math, and just following the numbers essentially, where things dropping off. And that looks different for like a really, really small business that has a lack of systems, at that point we just got to get systems in place so we can get visibility, so that we can identify where the inefficiencies are and then go from there. So it depends on where a business is starting, or where they're at. I mean, when we come in, and then just identifying things from there, and then making adjustments and improvements per that business's needs.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And of course, I'm sure it depends a little bit on the business that you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an example that comes to mind where you've applied that?
I'll give you a common one. So take, for example, with InfraScale, we're primarily focused on service-based businesses, any kind of business that relies on scheduling appointments, essentially, and to provide a service. And particularly, we've been targeting home services, though we're not exclusive to home services. And so a common one, yesterday, I was speaking with a pool builder, and he and I were on the phone. We were talking about his business. They're doing a few million a year off of referrals and word of mouth, which I'd say word of mouth and referrals,
Wow.
you're going to get people who have the highest intent, because someone they know, like, and trust referred them to you, right? And so if you are already trusted in someone's eyes that they trust, you're already positioned better than a completely random, for example, pool company that you don't really know about. You saw some Google reviews, but you have no kind of personal tie. So that's great. But when you only have word of mouth, which is essentially what their business has, when you only have word of mouth with no systems to have predictable, scalable growth, when seasonality hits, things fade. And with this company, it went from doing 250,000 a month to school kicked in, summer ended, people spent all their money, holidays are coming up, people are saving money from, after spending all their money for the holidays, and people don't want their pools remodeled as much. And so I was talking to him, and I said, and he's boosting posts on Facebook, which is okay if that's the best that you can do. It's not the most effective, but it is. If that's the best you can do, it's better than nothing. He's gotten a few jobs from that, but he's like, man, now we're at like 20K a month, and I've got all these people to pay. And we're talking about, like, when it comes to pool builders, we have a system that we call a remodel booking engine. We're talking through that system of ads to a sales page to our AI, and how that once we start seeing what's working in advertising, we can put more money behind that, scale it, and get more predictable results and more reliable results than word of mouth. Because word of mouth just relies on someone just happens to say they want this. They talk to someone happens to say, yeah, go to this guy. It's not predictable. There's no systems. There's no visibility on that. And so that's an example where we were talking through, and we were talking through these different layers of his business, and where these holes can be patched, and where systems can be implemented to combat this, lack from word of mouth. So.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, and then treating it according to the business. And it's interesting, you use the pool example. It's very lumpy revenue throughout the year.
Yeah.
So I imagine that plays into, or tailoring the approach to the business's needs.
Yeah, and just getting visibility so that you're targeting the right people who are, open to a pool, who have money and are open to a pool remodel, and you're getting in front of them, versus, like, I don't know where the next job's going to come from. I just know the phone might ring if someone refers someone to me.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of phone ringing, I'd love to maybe Rob, if you could talk a bit about Jackie, your AI employee,
Sure.
kind of how it works, what problem are you solving for customers? Yeah, and just a bit about the from the technical side. I'd love to hear.
Definitely. So I learned about AI systems in general during our first offer with insurance agents. We actually paid a company also out of Australia to run an AI messaging service for us. And basically, the way it worked is it worked off of the first automated message and a response to it. So after you receive the response, the AI would take over and run a prospect through qualification up until appointment booking. And for the amount of lead flow that we were receiving, as well as Zechariah and I having our own responsibilities throughout the day, not only within the company, but in other things we had our hands in, it was extremely helpful because people that we were reaching through our ads were extremely likely to respond to the first automated message. So we weren't lifting much of a finger and starting conversations instantly and booking prospects at their peak interest levels. So now this works really well with both messaging and calls. And what I mean by that is, you have two types of prospects, one that's likely to respond to a message and one that's likely to respond to your phone call. But both of them have the same thing in common, which is that they need to be reached really quickly, because if anybody understands how social media works today, you're being sold all day. And the moment you click on my ad, you're going to see 10 other ads that are extremely similar in business model nature. So even if a competitor of mine isn't selling AI solutions, maybe they're just helping, for example, pool builders make more money. And at the end of the day, your prospects just don't really care how you make them the money. They care that you make it for them. So they're going to sign up for all of these calls. And basically, if you're the first person to speak to them and you can delay them from talking to other people, you're just going to have a much higher likelihood of closing the deal. Well, the same story works for our prospects, not just for us. So now there's a lot more local contracting companies than there are online businesses that are going to be useful to you. So you have to think about the competition and how many people are marketing. So one solution that we may bring to the table is, well, maybe 4 of the 5 companies in the area aren't running marketing at all, but we may be the first person to get you to run ads and compete, not just based off of word of mouth or Google rankings. But the second place is, once we spark interest, we're going to have our AI reach out instantly and maintain that interest and book an appointment so that you can close that deal before they have a chance to speak to somebody else. And that is where Jackie becomes super useful, is not only capturing the lead quickly and booking the appointment, but also ensuring that anything that comes inbound, so something that you didn't, reach out to on your own, is picked up and handled quickly. Especially in contracting, you have a lot of companies that do emergency service, so 24-hour response. Now, that doesn't mean that the business owner who runs the ads is staying awake 24 hours by the phone. So I've had experience with this when our AC unit in the back was going out. We made a call at 9 o'clock at night, and an automated system picked up the call, but they didn't send somebody out until 8 a.m. the next morning. Now, some people will not deal with that. They'll just keep calling until they find somebody who's going to come out tonight. And if you have a system who can capture and at least give them assurance that somebody's going to be there as soon as possible, they might delay their response time to other people and you'll maintain that job. So the idea is not only capture more sales, but definitely don't lose any to your competition just because you didn't have a system in place to respond to people.
Yeah. Wow. No, that makes perfect sense. Being there at the right time is crucial. Yeah, I've heard there's a lot of studies on the timing of following up, or like if someone clicks a link on your website, if you call them within a certain amount of minutes, it'll convert a higher percentage than if you waited and stuff like that. I can see how Jackie kind of plays on those psychological elements as well.
Definitely. I believe the Harvard study is in the first 5 minutes after that, your likelihood of receiving the call to action, whether that's booking an appointment or closing a deal, it drops by over 70%. And after 24 hours, it drops to basically nothing. So, if people are responsive to an ad, they have an interest in something. And if you're not going to sell it to them, well, they'll more than likely find somebody who will before you can reach them, or they'll find the reason not to purchase whatever they wanted to in that moment within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And even a quick story, a recent example of that is I was recently at a business conference and I was talking to someone. She was really interested in what we're doing at InfraScale. And when I explained it to her, she was like, wow, this is so revolutionary. And this is her speaking. She's like, this week, my daughter is having some back issues and I was looking up, trying to find a chiropractor. Called the first chiropractor, didn't pick up the phone. I called the second one, didn't pick up the phone. Called the third one, didn't pick up the phone. But the third one called me back first. The third one got $1,200. It was like 12 sessions for $100 each or something like that. And she was like, all I kept thinking to myself was, wow, the first chiropractor lost $1,200 just because he missed the phone call, and it's like missing calls is missing money. And so, that's where, and she was like, if the first chiropractor just had your system, he would have had $1,200 just from a phone call. And so it really is powerful and changes small businesses.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. There's a lot of AI slop out there. I think I got that phrase from you actually. What in your opinion makes effective AI implementation different from gimmicky stuff that's flooding the market these days?
Yeah. Well, I think there's two things, right? People have been pitching automations as AI for years. So people who didn't actually have automated intelligence ingrained into their CRM, they were pitching their automated messages as AI. So that's number one, just deceptive marketing. And automations work completely different than AI. If I have an automation that goes out to you, Pete, right after you opt into my system and you respond instantly, it involves human interaction to curate a response. Now, you can get really intricate with automations and have a workflow respond to them, but it's not going to be custom to what the client said. So it's more risky to do that than it is to just leave it up to the owner to take over or the sales agent to take over. The second piece is that, young entrepreneurs today don't have a ton of interest in providing a high level amount of value. They simply just want to have a service to offer to other people. So they may build, let's say, a messaging AI that is not really curated for a specific business. It's just a baseline model. And it may not work all the time. There's a lot of holes in the AI systems that are presented just because of lack of value and an interest to compete rather than to provide a valuable system. And the most common AI that I've seen being sold is just AI messaging. Well, it's great, but your likelihood of, optimizing your funnel just from messaging, it's not 100%. I would say that only 20% of our leads are going to respond to a text message, and that's being generous. So it definitely depends on the market you're in. I'd say B2C, you may have a higher likelihood of getting a response through text message, but B2B, it's a little less likely because they're busy people. You catch them with a phone call, they're going to answer their phone because they run a business. But send them a text message, they might say, "Oh, I'm not reading that right now. I'll respond to it later," and then later never comes. So those two things it's definitely important to understand your market, understand what type of AI serves your market, and also the receptibility to AI in your market. We see some scenarios where, people just don't want to talk to AI at all. So a feature that we've optimized is that if there's somebody on the phone who has a dislike, they can tell that it's AI, even though it sounds quite strong, then we'll have the call transferred to the business owner. So they don't lose the prospect. The AI still handles the load of the work, but if needed, they'll just automatically transfer the call to the business owner, and now they can continue that conversation and still have that very quick response time.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. I like that a lot. That kind of a hybrid approach, human plus AI as assistant. I'm curious to hear if or what you recommend business owners like how would they get started with AI and automation. It can be overwhelming, especially older business owners. I'm sure you talk to a lot in the home service industry. They're like, there's just so much out there. It's like, how can you separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, and just get started?
Well, I'd say the first thing is to come work with us. No, but all jokes aside, Rob, were you going to say? You can go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, there is a ton of tools to help business owners succeed, and Zechariah was speaking about this recently. That even if business owners were just optimizing ChatGPT to solve some leaks in their businesses, they'd be a lot better off than not using AI at all, just because it's scary or confusing. The problem is, to use any AI system efficiently, you need to understand how it works. So first, if you're an older business owner and it seems scary, I'm going to tell you the same thing I would tell you if you were my prospect for any business model. You opened up your business to do what you're good at, which is not building AI or building systems. Even back when we were just selling automations and marketing, every business should have systems that optimize the flow of their prospects, that optimize different systems. We're not in the time where you need to hire 100 people to service a business that does under $1 million a year. And you also shouldn't be working 20 hours a day to take home, 20% of your revenue. It just doesn't make sense. So building systems that optimize any piece of your business, but most importantly, marketing and sales, the two things you need to make money, is something you need to search for. So for younger people who haven't started a business, I would say, learn AI, learn how it would be efficient in your business model, and determine if you want to build it yourself, hire consultants, or hire a company like ours. For people who have been in business for a long time and have zero desire to do any of that, then search for the most suitable partner who has true experience, who has true testimonials and case studies, and can provide you a valuable demo that you can see transforming your business. And that doesn't mean, firing half your staff, firing your sales agents. Sometimes that can mean transitioning people from less important roles in your company to more important, and letting AI take over the workload that AI can handle. AI is not going to show up at somebody's home and close the deal, but it can definitely book the appointment and do it 24 hours a day without a break. So,
Yeah. And I'd even say too, like, because Rob, you had mentioned about sometimes AI can seem scary. Like I had a call with a plumber. This guy, he's not a plumber, but he owns a plumbing company. And his concern was, well, what if someone knows that it's AI? So whenever our AI, like when they get on the phone, So whenever our AI has a conversation with one of the potential customers for one of our customers or clients, we get the transcript because we want to monitor. We want to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. If we need to adjust anything and so forth. And at this point, it's pretty good. Anyhow, we see transcripts where it's definitely the minority, but we still see transcripts here and there where someone's like, "Oh, I want to speak to a real human." That happens because I mean, people are people. We can't control what people want. And to Rob's point, yeah, we can do a live transfer, which is very effective and very helpful. But to the concern of, well, what if that happens? What does that mean for my business? What I told this owner of this plumbing company is, well, it's only the minority. The question you have to ask yourself is, unless you're picking up the phone nearly 100% of the time, if the AI is going to book even just an extra, it'll book way more than this, but even just an extra 10 or 15% more jobs than you would book. And maybe one or two of those opportunities every here and there, someone just doesn't want to speak to AI because they realize it's AI. Is it still worth it for your business? Most people don't care. They just want their problem solved. And they're happy that, to Rob's point, in his example with his life at 9 p.m., they got an answer. They didn't have to go to voicemail and to the voicemail abyss and call. They got an answer. They got an appointment set, and in their minds, there's a relief. So even to that point of AI, those concerns with AI and, oh, what if people notice? It's fine. I mean, most people don't care. That's what we've seen, at least. Most just, as long as you can solve my problem. And some people don't even want to talk to a human, because they're like, oh, this is a lot more efficient. That's also a plus for some people, but most people they don't mind. And for the few that do, I mean, it's cost benefit analysis. I'd take it all day, if I'm going to get
Sure.
more jobs booked ultimately.
I also
Yeah.
think that receptibility will evolve over time. I think
Mhm.
that people are used to getting calling your bank or calling your insurance company, and you have a automated receiver pickup that's looking for a specific response, right? Um, would you like to know how much is in your checking account? Would you like to speak with claims? And people get frustrated by that if their option is not on the menu. So that's a big problem where people are just like, whenever I call Bank of America, for example, I'm like, I want to speak to a representative because you cannot help me. Well, the AI system doesn't really work like that, right? So the AI system will respond to whatever you ask it. It will have the answer. And ideally, it's going to bring you to your end goal. So I think that when larger companies start to transition their automated receptionist to a true AI service, I think people will, you'll see that small section of people fade away who are less likely to speak to AI. And also, I think personally that a lot of the AI voices sound as close to human as you can. Their inflection, their emotion, but it's still a system that's developing. So sometimes they might be a little more excited than a normal human should be to one of your responses. And that's kind of things that give it away. But I believe that, we see how fast it's advancing. And we're definitely going to see a time where all of those bugs get tweaked out as well. And it sounds almost as dead on of a normal voice as ours do right now. So time will be a solution. I think the business owners who get in early are only going to see the advantages, not the weaknesses, because it's a lot stronger than it was when it came out 2 years ago, and only massive companies like Simple Talk AI were using it. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I think you're 100% right. As it gets better and it's actually able to meet your needs, That's a perfect example with the Bank of America. Like, I think people have a gut reaction right now to some people have a gut reaction to just hang up the phone if it's AI or not a human because it's been really ineffective in the past. But as it gets better and better, it could actually be, better than a human answering it in a lot of cases. Uh, so especially, offshoring some of those tasks, I think if their English isn't so great, I might prefer an AI agent, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's exciting to see where it's going and it's improving so quickly.
Yeah. And to your point, Pete, actually, in terms of sometimes it's better than a human being, we've seen examples of that where, you know, someone might call and have a very specific need. And unless they're the professional who actually is skilled in the work, so whether that's an HVAC tech, whether that's the chiropractor, his or herself, whatever, they'll say, I don't know, which reduces confidence. Whereas the AI is able to, one, we train it, on knowledge, and basically we like to get the business's brain, all the business's processes, SOPs, knowledge on how to do this, that, and the other nuances. And in addition to that, it has direct connection to the internet. So it's far less likely to say, like, to not know, not, or it will never say, I don't know, but it's far less likely to not know. And it's far more likely to give people answers when sometimes people derail, but we also train it on sales. So it's also able to smoothly pivot back and get on course and keep leading and directing the call toward booking a job instead of getting lost in Wonderland, like someone may who's just a receptionist, but they have no sales background. And so to your point of sometimes it is better than a human being, um, yeah, in these businesses. And it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, oh, awesome. Well, yeah, we're up on time here, guys. It's been an incredible conversation. I just wanted to leave the floor to you guys if you have any closing remarks on scaling or tech adoption or whatever, and then also just please, let us know where listeners can learn more about you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, my closing remark would be if you have a business and you want to grow, whether you have 2 or 3 employees, 30, 300, whatever, if you have 300, you may have some of these systems in place in terms of the front end. But I would say really get keen on having good advertising, like actual good marketing. That's going to help you cut through the noise. Advertising has gotten expensive, but it's primarily expensive when you don't have good marketing. You have good marketing, you can cut through the noise, get to people's hearts and get them to take action. And then from there, I'd also say, even if you are a gigantic company, even if you've got some kind of after hours call center that you're paying, I would still integrate AI, because we've spoken to a ton of companies where it's like, oh, we got this after our call center that we're paying, but they're not good. They're dropping the ball. They're not, our booking rate is going down, things like that. Because the people there, they're just there for a paycheck. They're not motivated. They're not getting commission or a split of revenue. So they're not being trained well on sales. They're just going off of a script. Whereas AI is, we train our AI agents to be sales agents. And so I'd say whether it's us or someone else, whatever, just adopt it and have more efficiencies. You don't have to Rob's point, we don't tell people to replace their staff. We don't want them to do that. We still want human beings to have jobs and be able to provide for their families, but transition people to more meaningful roles in your company and where they can have higher skills and bring more performance, and let AI handle things like appointment booking, following up with leads, going back to old leads, getting in touch with them, and so forth. So those are my final touches, before we get into how we can be reached. I don't know if Rob, you have anything.
Yeah, just to build on your point, I would say that, we're no longer in the era where hustle alone is going to dominate the market, right? There's just saturation in every business model. A ton of people say that, and you got to get in before it gets saturated. The truth is, everything's saturated. The companies with better systems, better marketing, better sales, those are the companies that dominate in their market. And obviously, being around for a while helps you succeed. But if you want to survive, if you want to be around for a while, well, you need to adopt those systems. And those systems, specifically in marketing and sales, you can drastically cut your costs by adopting AI, and being with a company that knows how to service you rather than just taking a cookie cutter approach, getting your contract, and then letting you dwindle out until you decide to go move on and be with somebody else. So do your research, whoever you decide to partner with. Definitely look at getting into AI and marketing in general. And if you want to stay competitive, continue to capture, the market cap in your space, then look into different systems and approaches to building your business rather than just hoping, I would say.
Yeah, be the Netflix of your industry, not Blockbuster.
Yep.
And
Well
the
put.
easiest way to get in touch with us, the simplest way is going to be if you go to our website, InfraScale. So that's INFRA, like infrastructure, and then scale, SCALE .ai. So InfraScale.ai. On there, you can book an appointment with us. Our emails are on there. You can reach us that way. And we'd be more than happy to just get in touch with you, understand what's going on in your business, and help you out. So, yeah.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes as well. But thank you so much, guys. Loved having you on, and we'll stay in touch. Maybe I'll have you on again in the future.
Sounds good.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
Pete.
Thank you, Pete.